Welcome to the Master Passive Income Show. My name is Dustin Heiner, and I'm here to help you learn how to quit that JOB, that just over broke job, by investing in real estate. And today, I'm super pumped to bring on a fantastic friend of mine who is a amazing investor, invests in land, as well as storage units now, and so many other things. He has a fantastic website as well that helps so many people to invest in real estate. He has his own membership that he even helps even more people. This guy helps people to invest. It's terrific. I have my friend on from retipster.com, Seth Williams. Hey, Seth, thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Hey, Dustin. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is great having you on. Now, you and I, like being friends, it's also fun that we're podcasters too, because that's, and investors. So we have so many commonalities, which is so fun because once you meet a podcaster, it's just like, ooh, hey, we're friends automatically because we're podcasters. Now, I love that you invest in land. And at RubeCon, at the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, you came in 2022, and you talked about 10xing your land investing, which, or not just land, but like 10xing your income and utilizing land investing and how you can make tons and tons of money. And so if anybody wants to get that, they can definitely get the replays. They can buy the replays. There was 28, I think, breakout sessions and everything, so much about every type of investing. But with that, I'm bringing you on again because, number one, your personality and what you do is err on the side of serving and giving, because that's the type of people we want at RubeCon. We want givers. We want people that are genuine, that want to help. So, Seth, tell us quickly about you, because I'll try to, or I probably won't. I'll forget, but I'll try to put it in the show notes, the other episodes that I have had you on. But with that, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then let's dive into seller financing and how we can utilize this in all walks of our real estate investing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. So I guess currently what I'm up to is land investing and also self-storage investing. But land, it was sort of like my origin story. That was the first way I ever really found any success in real estate after trying and not doing very well at flipping houses and wholesaling and rental properties. I kind of got there, but nothing that I would ever want to brag about or write home about. But with land, it was just a very different animal in a lot of ways. And this was back in like 2009. I mean, the environment was a bit different back then, as most of us know, but even, over the years, it's been a very, very advantageous type of strategy because the competition is a lot less than what you see with houses. Land is a very simple type of property to work with. It's just, things like physically having to go see the properties and getting into a property and the financing aspect, just lots of different things. There's just fewer wrinkles in the process with land that I found. But with vacant land, one of the weird quirks about it is that when you're talking about a vacant residential lot, if you want to go out and buy a vacant residential lot right now without any plan to develop that lot or build a house on it, chances are you're not going to find a bank that's going to finance that for you, because banks have a really hard time. I guess everybody has a really hard time understanding vacant land property values, because vacant land is a very weird type of property where when you look at what goes into a normal house appraisal, you need things like comparable sales. You need to understand what it would cost to rebuild that house. You need to understand how much income that house is making, if it's making income. And with vacant land, you don't have that information. It doesn't exist because there's no cost to rebuild. It's probably not making money. And even the comps, that's usually the only thing you have a hope of getting, but a lot of times the comps don't even exist. There's not an apples to apples comparison. So because of that valuation challenge, which land investors know ways to get around that and know ways to get comfortable with it, but banks don't really. And because they don't understand it and can't understand the value, they're like, well, we're not going to finance this because we don't know what it's worth. So we don't have any collateral value that we can rely on to repossess it if we ever have to. So because of that, seller financing is a huge deal with vacant lots, because say if you have a $50,000 vacant lot you're trying to sell, given that a bank is not going to come in and collateralize that property and finance it for somebody, that basically means that your buyer needs to have that cash ready to go. And if they don't have $50,000, they can't buy it. However, the alternative is you could offer seller financing so that you basically allow them to make a down payment to you and then make, installment payments for the next 3, 5, 10 years, whatever you want to work out with them. You can charge them interest. And through doing that, you can ultimately make more money on the property. You can usually sell it faster because you're giving a lot more people a way to buy it because you're willing to finance it when a bank won't. You can usually sell the property for a higher price. And if you want to create recurring sources of income, to kind of give your business income stability, it's perfect for that. And with the whole land acquisition model that I've always followed and the one that I've always taught about, when when I'm buying these properties, I'm not paying full market value for them. I'm paying 30% of market value, maybe 40% of market value. So on that first the first down payment that I get from somebody, a lot of times, like, it almost completely pays off the money that I have into it. Sometimes it does pay it off completely, depending on what I want to set up. And that means every payment after that is pure profit. It's not like I'm using that to pay a mortgage or something because I already own it free and clear because I bought it for so cheap. So that's why seller financing is such an instrumental tool for land. And it sort of is for a lot of other types of properties too. But with things like houses and buildings, you're subject to Dodd-Frank, which is kind of a annoying law.
Yeah, very annoying.
That basically just it makes it much harder for you to sell that kind of property with ease. But with land, Dodd-Frank largely doesn't apply. I don't want to say across the board, but because there's no dwelling on it, that's basically the thing that triggers Dodd-Frank to apply to a lot of these properties, the fact that there's a dwelling. With vacant land, it's not a thing. So it's a very cool type of property that seller financing works very well with. And I know when I first got into land, seller financing, what I just explained to you here, that was explained to me. And that's all true. But there's also a lot of gotchas and really annoying things about it that can come into play if you don't know how to deal with those things. So first of all, underwriting or understanding who do you want to lend money to, essentially. Because if you just approve anybody, like anybody off the street comes in and is like, yeah, I want to buy it, give me seller financing. And if you just say yes, you should pretty much plan on them defaulting and not paying you at some point. That's probably what's going to happen, or at least, 30-40% of the time. And that really should be no surprise because you're not doing any homework on this person to verify that they're actually going to do what they say they're going to do. And some people say that with vacant land, it's okay. It's not a big deal because you can just take the property back and keep all the payments and sell it all over again. And that's sort of true, but that depends on, did the borrower destroy the property while they owned it? Or did they, in that state where the property is, how easy is it to repossess that property? Some states make it super easy. Some make it super hard. And while all this is happening, how much money are you losing? How much money does it cost you to repossess that property? So there's a lot of factors to it. And what I learned after I started doing seller financing like this is that even though it might have been true that I could repossess these properties and resell them, I kind of just wanted to get paid, like just pay me like you say you're going to pay me. So I don't have all these like interruptions in the income and unexpected hoops I have to jump through. And the way you avoid that is with proper underwriting and understanding who you're selling the property to, and also buying the right type of land in the first place. Because when you buy like just a rinky-dink, trashy, piece of property that nobody really wants or cares about, it's much easier for a borrower to walk away from that and just abandon it and drop it in your lap. It's also hard for you to sell it in the first place because it's not that great of a property. So if you focus on doing this with the best properties, the most desirable ones, it's going to be harder for people to walk away from them. And it's also going to be easier for you to sell them. And because you're doing seller financing and you're making a lot more money in the process because of interest, you're able to justify paying higher prices for better properties. So anyway, so this is just kind of a little sampler of some of the stuff that I was hoping to talk about at Rubicon, because seller financing was not explained to me very well at all. I had to learn a lot of this stuff through the School of Hard Knocks, and I've been continuing to learn a lot about this stuff. The learning process is still going for me, but I know a heck of a lot more now than I did back in the beginning, and probably a lot more than the average person does. So I thought, you know what? This would be a good thing for me to explain comprehensively to people.
Oh, totally. And so with any type of real estate investing, seller financing is all over the place. I even know of somebody I was just talking to, another investor, they got seller financing on a multifamily. I think it was like a, I don't know, 30-unit apartment complex, seller financing there. So they received seller financing. I personally have done seller financing for properties of my own. There's a couple properties that I literally did quote unquote like a rent to own type of thing. So I'm doing seller financing for, I own these properties free and clear. And this properties, I probably would not, one of my first, there's are my first properties that I didn't know what I was doing. They're not the best area. And I'm also able to bless a family to have a good property to live in. And so I'm doing rent to own, or basically seller financing for them. So you can do it both ways, buying a property and selling a property. But if you do it well, you're going to do really, really well. And I love you made the key point. You said, like, I just want them to pay me, because people say, oh man, if they stop paying you, then you just get the property back, right? I'm like, yeah, I could do it all over again, but I don't want to. I just want them to have the property. I don't want to have that hassle all over again, because I have had to take the property back and start it all over again. It's a bummer. I want them to have it. I didn't do it just to make money and take money from them, where they're in for a little bit and then they can't do it. No, I want them to have this property in the end, because I'm getting what I agreed to and they're getting what they agreed to. Now, what are some, are there any catches, or are there any lessons that you've learned throughout this process to say, hey, if you're doing seller financing, either way, like you're buying something with seller financing, you're giving seller financing for a piece of land or something like that, is there anything in there that we're like, oh man, I never would have known that unless I literally went through that entire process myself?
Yeah, well, I know one thing is that laws vary a lot from state to state. And I know this was something that I used to hear people talking about all the time, is like, yeah, use a land contract, set up a land contract. It's like, okay, land contract, let's look that up. What is a land contract?
Exactly. I did the same thing.
It kind of, in other states, it's more commonly referred to as a contract for deed, which is the exact same thing. It's just a different name for some reason. People use it. And a land contract is a type of loan instrument where the seller continues to hold title to the property until the loan is paid off, and then they transfer title. So it's better for the seller than the buyer. But there are some states, like Texas is one, where a land contract is not the right loan instrument to use because of the state laws. I'm not an attorney. I don't pretend to understand the state laws, but everybody says don't do a land contract in Texas. And there's similar stuff in like California and this state and that state, where it's like land contract. I mean, you could, but it's just not, you don't want to do that. It's going to be way harder to get the property back or maneuver through this thing. And I guess the learning that I'm getting to is, every time I go to a new state and I'm trying to do seller financing, the answer is not to just grab a random template that somebody told me to use. The answer is to find an attorney for that first one, tell them exactly what I want to do, just be super specific, and I need to understand what I want. I can't just say, make me this thing, without giving them some specifics. But especially for that first one, get an attorney to do this for you and do it right. Because if you get the wrong document and you do this again and again and again and again and again the wrong way in all these other states, or even one other state the wrong way, you just kind of gumming things up in a really bad way. And also keep in mind that, like, and this was something I didn't even really think about until probably 5 years into it, but you can sell these notes. You can sell this land contract or this deed of trust or mortgage to other investors, and they can basically buy you out at a, usually not the entire value of the loan balance, but like a discounted rate, depending on how, quality the loan is. And you basically just get paid off and take that money and move on to something else. But if you set up the loan the wrong way with a borrower that you didn't underwrite, with the wrong loan document and everything's all screwed up, like, either nobody's going to want to buy that from you, or if they do, it's going to be like a, 80% discount on the balance. Like, you'll just totally lose your shirt on it. So basically, there is a big benefit to just knowing what you're doing and doing it the right way, and not just winging it and thinking you understand what you're doing without getting legal help. So
I think it's brilliant. And every state's different, like you said. So if you get legal help in Texas and you find one in Oklahoma, go do it again in Oklahoma. Yeah. Every single state's going to be different, because we invest all over the country. Mm-hmm. And so every single time we find experts that are literally there in that area. Now, how do we find deals? Let's say it could be land, it could be a home, multifamily, but how do you suggest the best way to find these where we can buy them at seller financed rates, or not rates, but like finding a seller finance?
Yeah. You mean like buying a property where that seller is selling it with owner financing?
Correct.
Yeah. I think that's just a conversation that you have with that person, understanding where they're coming from. Like, do you need cash or are you willing to accept payments for this thing? Do you want this to turn into a source of retirement income for you? Or do you want to get the whole payoff right now and pay a higher tax rate on that? Just kind of understanding different ways you can frame it. Because I think a lot of sellers, like when you start getting all complicated and fancy with seller financing, like they don't get it. They just want their money. They just want to move on. They don't want to play all these games. And so you need to sort of have some good explanations on like, why might you want to consider this instead of just taking cash? And, one of the reasons might be because I can pay you, full market value or something, or close to it, a higher price. Another one might be, and this is kind of getting into like tax advice. So you don't want to get super specific, but, based on, or depending on how much income or how much of a principal payoff they receive on that property per year, it can have certain tax advantages versus just getting the entire payoff at once. There's probably many other brilliant ways to frame it, but and sometimes the answer is just no, like they're just not going to do it. And in that case, if you can only pay cash, then I would say, okay, well, let's talk about a seriously discounted cash price. But the cool thing about buying with seller financing is that depending on what your exit strategy is, say if you're trying to, sell the thing as soon as possible, what if you sold it with seller financing as well, either at the exact same price or a markup, but the way you're making your money is in a higher interest rate than what you're paying to the person you bought it from. And if you can create a spread there, and if you have, if you're selling it to somebody who's going to pay you consistently, again, this is where good underwriting comes into play. I mean, you can basically just create a source of income just based on that spread. And if you can sell it for a lot more than you bought, then obviously that's even better. But I mean, once you start becoming willing to go down this seller financing path, like a lot of new opportunities open up for you, stuff that you normally would just walk away from because they're not going to fit into this rigid, small little box that you consider to be the perfect deal. And there are times in the economic cycle when you can be rigid because sellers are motivated and they will do what you want them to do. But I know for the past couple of years, it's been different. Like it's harder to get deals and people aren't just going to sell for nothing and walk away from their property. So that's when it's helpful to have these new approaches and tools in your tool belt to pull them out when the situation calls for it.
Yeah, definitely. And you hit the nail on the head too by saying, asking the seller what they want. Because if you don't know what they want and you just offer out and say, hey, how about this? Well, you don't know if they want that or not. But if you ask them questions first, like, how can I help you in this situation? Like, you have this property, I'd like to buy it. What do you want with that? It helps. And real estate's about people. It's not about properties. You'll get a property, but if you're helping the person, it's just going to make it everything better because you finally know exactly what they want. Now, you said the same word many times. A lot of people don't understand what that means. And I want to know what it means, but then also, how do we actively do it? Underwriting. How do we actively
Sure.
underwrite a property to protect ourselves from problems that can happen in the future?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm getting back in my banker lingo. So underwriting is it's basically the process of looking at a deal or looking at a borrower, for example, and looking into their credit history and their character and their capacity or ability to repay, looking at the asset that you're financing and how easy or difficult it will be to get that thing back and what it's worth. It's they call it the 5 C's of credit: character, capacity. I forget what they are. I've got an article I can link to, but it's basically the practice of analyzing the person that you're going to be working with to decide, are they reliable? Like, are they actually going to, like, will they do what they say? Can they do what they say? Are they just committing to something that they don't even understand? And there's a lot of different things you can look at to assess the risk and understand what are the chances that they're going to do what they say. And this is what every bank in the world does before they lend you money. Credit reports. Sometimes they'll just look at that, and it's certainly an important piece, but that doesn't tell you everything. If you're getting a commercial loan, they're going to dive a lot deeper to look at, your business, your income, your sources of income, how long you've been doing what you want to do, and they'll make a judgment call on whether or not they think you're a good risk. And if they don't feel good, then you're not going to get that loan. And the process of underwriting is the process of going through that, understanding who this potential borrower is, and if you want to work with them. And if red flags come up, and if they don't have good answers to those red flags, then you don't work with them. And the alternative that I was taught in the beginning is don't ask any of those questions. Just say yes to everybody. It's fine because you can just get the property back. And again, it's sort of a half truth. I think it's not the full story. And so in my experience, sometimes it was fine, sometimes it was a huge pain, and all of the time it was extra movement that I didn't want to do. I just wanted to get what it was owed to me and what they said they were going to do. So, but yeah, part of my problem was that I didn't really have a super solid system for going through this underwriting process. Like, what questions am I supposed to ask? What does matter? Like, what is a red flag? What should cause me to say, uh-oh, or ask more questions? And, I used to work as basically a glorified credit analyst back in my old job. So I have a pretty good framework for that when looking at a commercial business loan. But looking at a piece of vacant land, it's a bit of a different animal, and it's less complicated by far. There's not as much stuff you need to look at, but there's still some things you should consider. And that's some of the stuff we're going to be covering in the presentation at RubeCon.
With that, there are so many other ways to make sure that you're successful in your real estate investing. I definitely wanted everybody to go check out retipster.com. And that article on the 5 C's. It was the 5 C's, correct?
Yep, the 5 C's of credit.
5 C's of credit. So you just go search, go to retipster.com and search 5 C's. You'll probably find it. I don't have that on my site for sure. So definitely, Seth is the man on that. But with that, utilizing the seller financing on both ways, whether you're buying or selling a property, is brilliant if you can find the right people. And remember, it's all about people. Right people that are buying your properties, the right people that are selling the properties, and connecting with them and helping them out, focusing on how can I make this transaction work for them? Because I grew up in, I was always playing sports. There was always competition. You always had an opponent. There's always a win-lose. And I took that into my real estate investing. There was always a win-lose. This seller needs to lose. I need to win. That's not the case. You can make it so that it's win-win. Now, we give some. We don't get, let's say, that $10,000 as opposed to $40,000. You're going to give some, but at the same time, how much better would it be if the seller's walking away man, that's Seth guy. I like that guy. Or that Dustin guy. Man, he really helped me out with that deal. How much better is that than just making a little bit extra money? So what I'm saying is, if we focus on the person and in the seller financing process, realize that it's possible. And I will say, Seth has a fantastic course that talked all about real estate investing in land. And I took his course, and there was there was a situation where you were buying a piece of property and you were recounting how this interaction went through. And this just accounts for your coaching ability to help students to actually do this. But in your process of buying this one property, I specifically remember the negotiation tactics. They asked a certain price, say, this is what we want for this property, and you offered a lower price. And they said, well, no, but they came down a little bit. They said no. And he said, okay, well, I'll leave my price on the table. And then 2 months later, they came back and said, hey, is that offer still on the table? You're like, well, no, things have changed. Price is lower now. And they said, well, we can't go that low, but we'll come down even more, to your last price. And he said, well, this is my price. I'm staying here. And they said no. And then a month later, they did the same thing and did it 3 times. And in the end, finally went from I don't know, it was a really, really high price to a couple $1,000s. It was amazing, just seeing that process. But nobody would have that experience unless they went through that, and they wouldn't see that it's actually possible to do this. Just like seller financing, you wouldn't see that's possible. You wouldn't see it's possible to do any of this stuff unless you had somebody like Seth that's literally walking you through. And that's what we're doing at RubeCon. The Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference is bringing all that together, and we're all of our experiences combined. I mean, we're going to be an unstoppable force of all these people that are helping each other out.
Yeah, man, it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it.
This is great. So, Seth, I want everybody to be able to find you. Obviously, go to retipster.com, check out the podcast, but how else can other people find you?
Yeah, so if you go to any social media outlet and just look for RE Tipster, you should be able to find me there. You're interested in the land business specifically, so we've got a land investing masterclass. It's a full course that I took 8 years, basically.
I've taken it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really good.
That's the one you're just talking about. So that's landinvestingmasterclass.com. And if you just want to check out like some of the free stuff, and there's a ton of free stuff on RE Tipster. We actually have a land specific category on the site where you can just look at all the land stuff. If you go to the homepage and scroll down, you'll see it near the top. There's just a land investing button you can click on. You'll see lots of great content there. And over on YouTube, I know we make a lot of stuff there too. So just look for RE Tipster on YouTube. And yeah, there you go.
Podcasts as well. You definitely got to
podcast
listen
as
to
well. RE Tipster podcast. You got it.
Yeah, but you also need to come to RubeCon. You need to be there. Use a promo code podcast where it'll just give you 10% off. But we want to see you there. And the great thing about RubeCon is these speakers like Seth and myself and we have 35 speakers now so far. We might even get to 40. I mean, we have so many people that want to speak, that are expert, that are givers, that want to share this. But usually you get to conferences and what they do, speakers come, they'll do their breakout sessions, hang out for a couple hours, but then they leave. They won't be there for the entire conference because they're like, I got better things to do. No, we're investors. This is like a conference for investors by investors because I'm an investor and I wanted a conference like this, but nobody was doing it. So like, okay, I might as well do it. And with that, all these speakers are literally going to be around all of us and they're going to be helping each other out. They're going to be learning as well. I learned a ton from all these other speakers.
Yeah, me too.
I am super pumped. So Seth, thank you so much for being on the show, man. I appreciate your friendship and really, really glad that you're a part of RubeCon.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Dustin. It's great to talk to you again. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.